MLB postseason started last night. Dramatic win by Toronto against the Blue Jays 5-2. You got the Mets and San Fran. Always good to catch up, talk a little baseball. USA Today Steve Gardner does a great job covering baseball and kind enough to join us on a very busy Wednesday. How you been, pal?
I'll tell you what, a heck of a way to start the MLB postseason, huh?
Let me ask you right off the bat. I like the one-game playoff. I think it adds drama. There's a lot more intensity. Managers are really now. This is kind of where you make your money, and it forces teams too. We get to see good pennant races down the stretch. I mean, what's your feeling on the one-game playoff?
I've warmed up to it. I originally didn't think it was that great of an idea, but I do like the fact that it gives you the one-and-done and Game 7 type atmosphere right off the bat. And number two, it sort of gives a little handicap to the wild card teams for not winning their divisions and rewards the teams that did over the course of 162 games.
Yeah. What was your first thought, your initial reaction last night in that 11th inning with the Baltimore and, Buck Showalter, who – I mean, you can't argue. I mean, the guy's a great manager, and just for some inexplicable reason decides to not go to the bullpen in the 11th.
I can't fathom any logical reason why Zach Britton was not in that game in the 11th inning. And really, even sooner than that, I think that the place to put him in was in the 9th inning because, you know that if your bullpen allows one run, you're toast. The game is over. The season is over.
So just use him up.
You have to use your best pitcher in the 9th inning, and then the next best pitcher after that, and the next best pitcher after that. People that are talking about saving Zach Britton for a save situation assume that every pitcher, if you're going to wait until you got the lead, that assumes that every pitcher in the bullpen is going to hold the Blue Jays scoreless until you get a chance to score a run and bring Britton in. That's ludicrous. And
Steve,
why
too,
Buck Showalter didn't bring him in is beyond me.
And I was actually looking at this during the break. He pitched against the Yankees 1 2/3 innings. That's it. He threw 20 pitches. So it's not like – and that was the other day when the O's beat him last game to close it out 5-2. So it's not like that – you're saving this kid's arm or you're not using him. And this, what was it, 47 up, 47 down, save chances? And I know Buck tried to defend his decision, but this is the decision where you're absolutely right. And you knew and I knew. Once they got into the 11th and they got a couple runners on and Encarnacion came up, I mean, it was just a matter of time. It was almost inevitable. I knew he was hitting a home run.
Yeah, and you want your best pitcher pitching against the heart of the Blue Jays order. I would rather have had him pitch in the 9th inning against, Donaldson and Encarnacion and Bautista. But you had the same situation in the 11th inning when you started off with Carrera, who's a left-handed hitter. He brought in Brian Dunsing to face him. I do not understand, and it's going to be something that's going to haunt the Orioles and their fans. And I think it has to haunt Buck Showalter all off season long.
All right, you have the Mets and the Giants this evening, Syndergaard and Bumgarner. And I just want to read this out to the Met fans. Reyes, Cabrera, Cespedes, Granderson, Bruce, Rivera, Looney, Rene Rivera, and then Syndergaard, obviously, the pitcher spot. So Reyes will lead off. I looked at this lineup. And I was a little surprised. Duda not in the lineup. You figure with all the righties the Giants have, maybe you want Duda's bat there. 9 pitchers, no Lugo, no Smoker, 8 guys on the bench, 6 outfielders. They took Conforto, a little surprise there. How about this roster for the Mets, potentially going forward and for tonight? Any surprises?
Not necessarily. I mean, because you've got Bumgarner on the mound, I think that's where you have, maybe not the need to have too many lefties out there. But this could go – I could see this game going just like last night.
Agree.
And being toward extra innings where you're going to need Conforto to come in there and do something. So I think the fewer – you can have plenty of pitchers. I think the need for more position players so you can do changes, pinch hitting, especially because you're going to want to pinch hit for pitchers if it goes into extra innings. I
look at this game tonight, and we know about Bumgarner's track record. To me, Syndergaard's got to have confidence not only in his fastball, but his secondary pitches. And then conversely, you look at Bumgarner, he's an old-school pitcher. I mean, he'll be up at 118, 120 pitches. He's not going to want to come out. I mean, I don't look at this game as a 5-4. I look at this game as you got to scratch and claw, maybe manufacture, put on a squeeze, steal some bases. You're going to have to find a way to just scratch out a couple runs tonight. I mean, what's your opinion on that?
I see that exact same scenario playing out. And here's the case where the Giants may look to take advantage of Syndergaard's inability to hold runners on base and keep them from stealing. I think he may have allowed the most stolen bases of anybody, or at least in the top among major league leaders in stolen bases allowed.
They steal against him. Yep.
Yeah, look for Joe Panic, Denard Span, Pagan, any of those guys when they get on base to try and steal, because it should be a pitcher's duel. This is what the wild card game is supposed to be, to have these kinds of aces on the mound facing each other, and let's see you try and score a run, and I can't wait for it personally.
And the winner will take on the Chicago Cubs. And how much pressure? I mean, when you win 100 games, when you have last year's heartache, if you're a Chicago Cubs fan, when you make the necessary moves, when you basically jump out of the gate from start to finish, and you really just dominate your division, you dominate baseball, you're arguably the best team statistically in baseball. I mean, if it doesn't happen this year, you almost start to wonder when. I mean, to me, this is the year. It's got to happen with the Cubs.
It sure does, and yeah, the only thing we wrote up some things for USA Today and Sports Weekly about who we thought was going to win and why, and I picked the Cubs, and the best reason I could come up with for them not winning is that because baseball is unpredictable and you never know what can happen. I mean, every scenario that I can conceivably think of has the Cubs winning because they're superior defensively, in the depth of their roster, in their starting pitching, in their closer. It just things, and their manager too, for that matter. I wouldn't see Joe Madden making the same sort of mistake that Buck Showalter did last night. So I think this is the Cubs' year, and goat curse be damned. I think this is the one that they do it.
You make a great point, because look at the Giants. The Giants, they had their moments this year, and then they struggled. Then all of a sudden, they start to pick it up a little bit, and sometimes you're that hot team. You got that momentum, just like the Dodgers. I mean, I'm looking at the Dodgers right now, and the Dodgers, I mean, you want to talk about catching the Dodgers at the wrong time when they start to get healthy, and then conversely, when you turn around and you're the Washington Nationals and you're losing players left and right. I think the loss of Ramos is huge. You got guys that are nicked up. Mentally, they're probably already saying in D.C. all these past playoff failures as well. You're right. I mean, baseball it's a funny sport. I mean, they always say your momentum is your next game's pitcher, but in this case, you look at the Dodgers. They got a great manager, a great skipper, young mind who's been there before, who's won as a player. To me, I think they're going to be a tough out. Now, I don't know if they can go and beat the Cubs, but to me, I think the Dodgers are going to be a tough out, especially if you get a healthy Kershaw.
Oh, exactly. And, it's the Dodgers who are fully healthy with Kershaw back, and the Nationals who are so hamstrung that, half of their lineup, really, the team that you would want out there on the field, probably half of those guys are injured to some degree. And like you said, not having Wilson Ramos, it's a huge blow to the Nationals. So, even though the Nats have home field advantage, it would not surprise me to see the Dodgers take this series at all.
I still don't think the Red Sox are built for a deep postseason run, but the more people I speak to and the more I read, I almost get the sense a lot of people, I don't know if it's more David Ortiz sentiment or if they're really buying into the Red Sox and their offense. It seems as though more and more people that I've spoken to have picked Boston to play the Cubs in the World Series. What say you?
Yep, that's where I'm leaning. I love the Red Sox offense and their ability to hit pretty much anybody. The 1-2 punch of David Price and Rick Porcello, that could be interesting going up against a Darvish and Cole Hamels for the Texas Rangers. That should be fun if we see that. But I still think Boston is better built. You've got a better bullpen, I think, in Boston, even though the Rangers, won all those close games. I think that's one of those things. The Rangers had the best one-run record, I think, in the history of baseball, or very close to it. That kind of thing is not something that is a repeatable or a learned skill. I think just with the Red Sox postseason experience, I think it's going to come through. You're going to see a huge moment from David Ortiz.
For sure.
I think that's almost a given. And the one thing for the Red Sox is Rick Porcello has been fantastic this year. David Price has not.
No.
And, he struggled in the postseason before. I think, David, this is a chance for David Price to kind of get on the big stage again and, dismiss some of the doubters by having a big year. I don't know why. I don't really know any explanation for why he wasn't as good as he was supposed to be during the season, or that we all thought. But this is an opportunity to kind of wipe the slate clean. And, what have you done doesn't really matter as much as what you're going to do in your next outing.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, Porcello with 22 wins, and you look at Price's record, you say, hey, 17-9, that's not bad for the season. But no. The ERA is almost 4. He's been very inconsistent at times. You're right. It almost seems as though he's, I don't want to say indecisive. He just doesn't have confidence in his certain pitches like we've seen in the past, especially younger days with Tampa Bay. They need him. They're going to have to rely on him to give him that quality outing. One more before I let you get out of here. I'm just curious, and we'll talk a little more about this next week. But early on, who would be your AL MVP?
I'm in the Mike Trout camp, and I don't think players should be penalized for having to play with bad players on their team. And the Red Sox, you could make a case, certainly Mookie Betts is going to be one of the leading candidates, but you could make a case for David Ortiz.
Of course, yeah.
Dustin Pedroia has had a fantastic year. Xander Bogaerts has had a great year. So, I mean, being part of that lineup, you can't help but, have the tide lift all boats in that respect. And Mike Trout has been the better player in the entire American League than anybody else. He gets on base better. He scores runs. He does everything. He plays great defense in center field, a premium position. To me, he's the best player in the American League, and your supporting cast, I don't necessarily think you need to be on a good team or a playoff team to be the most valuable player.
Well, Dawson won the MVP, and he was on a losing team years ago with the Cubs.
True. Cal Ripken, too,
Cal
for that
Ripken,
matter.
yeah. Got about 15 seconds. Mets win tonight?
I have them winning. I'm the only one on our staff and our predictions that
making a lot of listeners around this area that tune in that are Met fans happy. I think it's gonna. I call it a white knuckler.
No doubt. I think it'll be very close.
All right, pal. Good stuff. We'll talk next week. I know you got to travel on the weekend. Be safe, and certainly we'll follow you on Twitter and everything with the updates and the information. We'll talk next week.
All right. Thanks so much,
All right,
Rich.
you got it. Steve Gardner. Good stuff.